Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Mortal Kombat Franchise Documentary. I'm delighted this evening to be joined by the one and only Tom Choi, who voiced the character Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat. I suppose, Tom, I'm going to start where I start off this interview, where I ask everyone, going back in the early 90s when Mortal Kombat came out in the arcades and it was its big rival at that time, Street Fighter. Were you one of those arcade bashing button type guys growing up that spent his last nickel on those sort of fighting games in terms of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter? And if so, what was your favorite and what character did you like to play as?
Yeah, I think I'm aging myself here, but yeah, I was of the age when it was at its prime, the arcades. So yeah, I definitely played those games a lot. Obviously, Street Fighter had all the cartoony graphics and everything like that, but Mortal Kombat, definitely was original with its like what do you call that? Video capture, screen grabs, and animation done that. So that was really unique, and obviously the blood and gore was pretty cool. So yeah, it was fun playing those.
And I suppose, Tom, it's a story of a franchise that it's made the transition from video games to the big screen is Mortal Kombat, and it's succeeded where probably its counterparts Tekken and Street Fighter have failed to do so. Street Fighter
Mhm.
had the sort of go at it. Capcom put an awful lot of money. They got John
Yeah.
Claude Van Damme, Bob Shuley. It didn't really work out in terms of what they tried to achieve, and they didn't go near it again. In terms of Tekken, they tried it. Namco tried it once or twice. Again, the same sort of thing. But Mortal Kombat has been one of those fabled sort of fighting franchises that has successfully made the transition to the big screen in terms of the two movies, two TV series, a web series, a multiple game, and a new movie coming out. Just relation to you, as you said, you played those games back in the early days. Why do you think Mortal Kombat succeeded where Street Fighter and Tekken failed?
I think it's less cartoony, and I know it sounds weird, but it's more gore, sci-fi, fantasy than it is something that would translate to be more childlike or something on screen. I mean, I loved the first Mortal Kombat movie, maybe because I was younger. I got a great chance to work with the Johnny Cage on that, Lyndon Ashby on the TV series Teen Wolf that I was on for 3 seasons. So it was awesome working with him. And I just think that if you put it in the right hands, the right director, the right writing team, you're going to have a really good chance of translating the whole theme, which is very adult, very, gore, very, realistic to the big screen.
And Tom, you said you saw that original movie back in 1995, and it was a smash hit in terms of its martial arts scene, in terms of its fight scenes, its
Mm-hmm.
choreography as well, and the cast sort of blended well together. And I suppose no sooner than it was over than the ink and the writing was on for a sort of sequel, such was the demand. In terms of Mortal Kombat back in the early 90s, that sort of movie alone, does it really stand up as probably one of the uh, good, probably one up there, one of the best martial arts movies of the 90s?
You're asking me if that was one of the best martial arts movies of the 90s? I mean, when it's pure martial arts, you got to look at Best of the Best. Is that a great movie? You got to look at Karate Kid. You got to look at what's the other one? Oh crap, martial arts. Obviously, oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? All the ninja series, like all the oh man, oh what was the one I was thinking about? There's one that you got to compare it to martial arts in the '90s. You said right? Oh, Bloodsport. I mean, anything with Sho Kosugi and you know Van Damme is probably good. But yeah, I mean, when you add the elements like everybody, I think what sold it was when you see Scorpion's harpoon going across the screen in 3D effect. I mean, it's going to be cool, and of course the soundtrack was amazing. So they did something right with that.
And I suppose, Tom, you're a renowned voice artist and you voiced many roles in sort of computer games. And when did the opportunity come about? Was this the first time you got involved in Mortal Kombat voicing Liu Kang? And in terms of how did that opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was back in the day. I just auditioned for it. I guess they really liked my voice, and I was, I'm lucky to have done 3 of the games, which I'm very, fortunate for. And this is a good time to introduce my Liu Kang pop
Yeah,
from Mortal Kombat X. There you go,
he,
autographed.
he looks like.
He looks like me, right? Yeah, exactly. So anyway, yeah, and then so it was a great opportunity for me to do those three games in the series.
And I suppose that Tom, in terms of being a voiceover actor right now, in terms of Liu Kang and sort of, do you still need those sort of drawings, those images of what they what they want Blue, what Blue will resemble in the sort of game, or in your head are you going off the 1995 movie in terms of how you want the tone, his sort of voice, and sort of are you thinking I'm going to make it some way similar to Robin Shaw, or do you like to put your own twist?
It depends on whose hands it's in. If you put it into somebody like Taika Waititi or whatever that is, the Guardians of Galaxy director, you're gonna have something more nostalgic, more comedic. So you want to take the elements of the original series movies and sort of create an homage to that, kind of like Cobra Kai did with Karate Kid, right? Like they filmed it in that cheesy '80s style, and the acting was kind of stilted like that. So if you take those elements, but I don't know, you might want to do the new ones because they're so successful and they're incredibly detailed, incredibly gory, um, and the storyline. There's so many different storylines now. So, you know,
Yeah, I suppose Tom. I suppose Luke Kang is the sort of fabled sort of hero of Mortal Kombat. So many times he's the sort of chosen one. He's the sort of the story centers or robs him, whether he has a bad turn or a good turn, or brought to the bad side or brought back to the sort of good side as well. So, in terms of voicing a character that is so central to the franchise of Mortal Kombat, because in fairness, without Liu Kang, there is there is no Mortal Kombat as sort of such in terms of his importance to the role. Oh, an honor is that to have that on your resume.
it's been incredible. I mean, my social media reflects it. The response I get from Mortal Kombat is more than most things that I play. I think I've played some decent stuff, and for me personally, it's a huge privilege because when I watched Mortal Kombat, that was the few times they had an Asian in the lead role, and it's not like some wussy Asian guy nerd like what's happening hot stuff, that kind of guy. It's an archetypical male role, and it was an Asian lead. So for me personally, it's an amazing opportunity, and I would love to do it again. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and I suppose you mentioned that. I suppose Mortal Kombat is one of those iconic franchises that it's been roughly since 1990s. It's been around. It's still going strong. In 20 years' time, when we're both having walking sticks and getting out of armchairs to us, Mortal Kombat will still be around. There'll be more movies and sort of franchise. It's a series that is growing in popularity all the time. There's more
Mhm.
demand. The games are sold, selling millions and millions of copies worldwide. So as a voiceover actress, is that you're always probably looking in the pipeline in terms of, it's been 2 years, a new Mortal Kombat game is probably around the corner.
Mhm.
Hopefully, I get a chance in that. So it's probably one of those things that you know that is never going to go away.
Yeah, I mean, I understand also that the creative teams change, so they have their favorites, and things will change. There are other opportunities with, say, animation. I know there's a Mortal Kombat animation series that's happening. Yeah, this is a huge brand, and it's going to continue. So it's great.
I suppose in terms of those sort of brands, in terms of, I mean, you take James Bond sort of franchise as well that continues to grow. Once a brand sort of established itself, and I suppose the key thing about Mortal Kombat is it's able to generate a new audience, a new teen audience every sort of 2 or 3 years to grow the numbers. But its loyal fans from the 90s still hasn't left the franchise either. They still really, really like the franchise. So Mortal Kombat for people who get hooked on an early age, it doesn't seem to lose its audience. It doesn't seem to alienate anyone. In fact, this probably audience keeps growing and growing.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a lot of different things from nostalgic times in the '90s and even in the early 2000s now, you've got a lot of cool stuff that people cling on to. And I think a lot of that's because the content's kind of not original these days. And Mortal Kombat was definitely original. I don't know what else is there that's, like I said, Karate Kid, even Saved by the Bell and all these other TV series that were on before, they're coming back. So there's a lot of that nostalgic feel to it. So it's great.
And I suppose, Tom, in terms of voicing Liu Kang in a Mortal Kombat game, in terms of the animated sort of cutscenes, do you like to see those sort of back afterwards in terms of what they look like in terms of the video game? Or do you like to see that you often purchase the video games afterwards or see what it looked like in before the video games is released to see those animated bits and the animated interaction and see your voice come to life in terms of that computer game.
You're saying, do I like to look at some of the cutscenes and trailers and stuff before the game comes out?
In
Oh
terms
yeah,
of your
absolutely. What was
in,
that?
ter- in terms of your character, in terms of Liu Kang, would you like to see the animated scenes of Liu in the video game before they come out?
Uh, yes. If I'm hearing correctly, are you saying that I like to look up to see the footage and everything, how it came out?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly that.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, like I just have a new character came out on Fallout 76 and I played Night Shin on that. So it's amazing to see the trailer and to be featured on that. So it's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely.
I suppose that Tom, the new Mortal Kombat movie is coming out in 2021. It's given a release date today for it was supposed to be in January, but it was sort of
Hmm.
pushed back in terms of COVID and the start of production. It's finally got a release date. It's coming out in April. I hear it's mostly shot in Australia this time around. An awful lot of renowned Japanese and Chinese actors are in this sort of movie, and the one or two Australian sort of actors as well. So, in terms of Mortal Kombat, I was listening to one of the actors who did an interview who's in the movie, and he said that this this made him have some sort of sleepless nights in terms of the gore, in terms of the fatalities, in terms of how people died. It's not PG related material like you would have in the 90s. This is really
Yeah.
dark and sinister, like the Dark Knight, in terms
Yeah.
of, or it's gone down that sort of route. And do you think that's a good way for Mortal Kombat to go in terms of getting in touch with its hardcore sort of fan base who revel in that sort of violence and gore?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because let's be honest, it started out that way. Even though it looked a little, obviously dated now with the original game, you still saw a ton of blood, and even the words "finish him" were in blood and everything. So it was already gory. The head decapitated head was lifted up. If you don't have that gory, you don't have Mortal Kombat. Just like the Resident Evil movies. I mean, if you don't have those aspects of what made it famous, you don't have a movie.
Yeah, and I suppose, Tom, in terms of you mentioned there about the fan base and in terms of Mortal Kombat, and I suppose it's global, it's all over the world in terms of in every sort of content. And you mentioned there about social media. And do you like interacting with your fans all over the world who mention Mortal Kombat to you and mention in terms of the character sort of Liu Kang? And you sort of taken back when you get comments from say Malaysia or Vietnam or Brazil or Argentina or Nigeria or places like this?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's right up there with like my time on Teen Wolf, which has very rabid fans as well. They have conventions for Teen Wolf and everything on MTV Teen Wolf, and Mortal Kombat is the same way. I mean, anytime I mention it, somebody's like, "Oh no way, you play Liu Kang? That's awesome, man! Oh wow!" And I trust me. I mean, it's great that you can you create such an icon. I mean, I can be a part of such an iconic character. Yeah.
And I suppose, Tom, and lastly, before finish off, let's say someone put Liu Kang in a Mortal Kombat sort of encyclopedia, and they asked you, Tom Choi, having voiced Liu Kang, in terms of what he meant to you, to sum him up, to portray him, to put him into sort of two sentences, what you think Liu Kang is. What would you like those two sentences to read?
Um, I would say definitely a true hero, iconic hero for the Asian American community, I guess. I'm just speaking from a personal standpoint. So I feel like he's been iconic to help, at least with my career, at least with image portrayal, the Asian male. So just, I would say, heroic in the face of, like, I don't know. It's very deep. Like, this is horrible because you asked for two sentences and I'm giving you like babbling, but I would say heroic in the face of evil and societal injustice of all different types. How's that sound? It's very generic, but
Tom. I suppose, Tom, we let you go now. It was great talking to you this evening to hear about your portrayal as Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat video sort of game, sort of franchise. And obviously, you portrayed a big part in terms of Mortal Kombat. You're always associated with Liu Kang having voiced his character. One of, or dare I say, there's not many people who have either played Liu Kang or voiced he voiced him in a game. So you're one of the few people in the whole world who can say that you have been Liu Kang. So on that note, Tom Choi, aka Liu Kang, we'll let you go. But thanks for sharing your memories
alrighty.
of time in playing Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat. Tom.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Good luck.
Fight!